So when you're reimagining your space, pat yourself on the back because you're already thinking the big picture. You're already thinking, what can I do to use the things I have now in a different way? Do you want a home that looks a bit more like you and a lot less like it did when you moved in 10 years ago? Are you tired of seeing picture-perfect homes flood your Instagram feed? Why do they seem to have their decorating act together when it takes you hours to choose a single pillow? Hey, I'm Danny, a self-taught home decorator who got tired of gathering home inspiration just to have it collect dust on the shelf. I've been transforming my home one space at a time, and it all started on a Goodwill budget while babies were sleeping. Here's the thing, friend. You don't need to have a design degree to create a home you're proud of, one that tells your story with your style, and you definitely don't need to have bags of money just waiting to be spent. You just need a little help and encouragement along the way. So let's be design besties, shall we? Every Tuesday, I'll be sharing listeners' questions in my Dear Danny series, so you can make progress on your home, creating a house that you're proud to come home to. So go ahead and send me your question, then pull up a chair so we can chat friend to friend. And when you're ready to hang out real time, join the collective, my membership with weekly lessons, live Q&A sessions, complimentary room edits, and hand-holding so you don't get lost along the way. All right, friend, let's dive into today's question. You guys really never cease to amaze me. Some of the questions I get are so clever and things that I would not have normally thought about, or things that I wouldn't have thought necessarily were things that you would be thinking about. And this one is kind of a fun one because this issue is really at the heart of how Fig and Farm at Home started. Let me tell you this little quick story. So when I was first starting out, I had a baby boutique. That was called Huck and Joe. I handcrafted pretty much any baby thing that you could think of. I worked with my mom a little bit. She would make the crib sheets and the bibs, and wow, was she a great seamstress. And then I would make the other things, and then I would be the face of this business, and I would sell it at fun little markets. Okay, fast forward 5 years, and my babies, which I was originally creating for them, those babies grew, and they didn't necessarily need their crib sheets anymore. We moved home, and I was redecorating a new house. And it was when I was redecorating the new house on a very, very, very tight budget that I had to get extremely creative, using things that I already had and reimagining them in different ways, rethinking them in different ways, experimenting with them in different ways, in enough ways that Mr. Fig and Farm would come home and think, okay, what are you up to today? And this is not going to work. I would be out in my driveway painting, sanding, staining, you name it. I would be stopping on the side of the road. Yes, friend, I stopped on the side of the road. If there was a free piece of furniture, I was going to check it out. That was just for me and my home. Fast forward a couple years, and I was working in a little, kind of like a market kind of thing with my repurposed goods. This was at the very height of the DIY upcycle kind of trend, right? And then now it has morphed into what you know today. Fig and Farm at Home. So I love this question so much because it really has to do with being resourceful, being a little bit crafty. And I don't even want to say crafty because I know some people who aren't crafty. We're just resourceful. We are just willing to take an experiment. And friend, if you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, I encourage you to experiment. It is so good for the soul. Okay, let's dive into the question. This is from Jerry, and she says, what are some ways that I can repurpose or update the things that I currently have in order to make it look new and fresh and maybe even a little exciting? Okay. All right, Jerry, get ready because this is really at the heart of what Fig and Farm at Home started as and is all about, is being a little bit imaginative because, again, I still don't know where the money tree is. Okay, Jerry, a lot of these tips today are going to blend one right into the other, and I'm going to focus on the 5 R's. And you'll notice that there is some blending between the different strategies, but what I want you to think about is that sometimes we can think about a singular item here, or we can think about an entire room or an entire area. But the first R I want you to think about is reimagining. And you're already doing that just in the very nature of asking this question. How can I update or refresh my room? And I'm just going to throw in on a budget, right? Because if we are not necessarily wanting to go out and buy new things, we can absolutely use or reimagine and repurpose some of the things that we do have to use in a new way. And we can do that in a way that doesn't cost a whole lot. I have a client who is so good at this, and I just had the privilege of chatting with her last night. But as we are going through space by space in her home and talking about bringing in more of her color story and making her home feel a little bit more airy and bright, but also using some very fun colors in terms of furniture and things like that, there is no hesitation with her painting something. If I say, oh, I wonder what that would look like blue, guess who's going to go and paint that? She's going to go and paint it. And she has repurposed and reimagined and rethought all of these different places within her home. And it's turning out gorgeous. Not only that, it's making it look a little bit more curated, a little bit more unique, and definitely not like the person's home next door. So when you're reimagining your space, pat yourself on the back because you're already thinking the big picture. You're already thinking, what can I do to use the things I have now in a different way? What can I do now to rethink and reimagine this new space so that I can enjoy it in a fresh light? And it doesn't always mean going out and buying something brand new. Okay, that's the first R, to reimagine. The second R, and this is free. I was going to say very free. How can you get more free than free? I don't know, but you can get very free. This is very free, friends. And that is to rearrange your furniture. There have been times when, especially in the early days, I don't have as much free time like this anymore, but when the kiddos were little and they would be napping and I would be tired of napping with them, but I would have some, creative energy kind of bubbling at the surface, ready to ooze over, I would play around with rearranging the furniture. One of my very favorite things when Mr. Fig and Farm would go away for a guy's weekend or what have you, and this is pre-kid, was to do a fun project while he was out. And he would always be surprised. I mean, he would be predictably surprised, right? He knew that something different was going to happen when he was gone. He would expect that there was going to be some sort of thing he needed to find and see. Sometimes changes were subtle, sometimes changes were big. That was predictable. The unpredictable part was the rearranging. Sometimes the dining room went into the sunroom and the sunroom went into the dining room, or sometimes just the living room furniture arrangement got rearranged. There is no rule, friend, that your furniture placement, the items in your home, where they currently are, or where they were when you first moved in, or where they were when you bought the house from where the realtor had staged it, there are no rules that you have to arrange your furniture in that way. There's no rules like that. One of the things that we did in our own home when we first moved into our Washington home was we took a pretty standard design. It's a very cookie cutter neighborhood. We took this standard design and we reimagined it. We rethought about the functionality of our space. And in our kitchen and our living room, there's a teeny tiny little space for a table, but there's also a bar. There's not a whole lot of space here for a table and bar stools. Somehow other people make it work. I don't know, maybe with a 2-foot wide table, that wasn't going to work for us with a family of 5. We reimagined it. We said the bar is going to be the priority, so we're going to get bar stools for kiddos to be at. We're going to have 1 dining room. We don't need 2. And we're going to reimagine that space and create a bench seating with really fun bookshelves that are now the cookbook storage and extra seating for football games or what have you. It opens up that space and it makes it feel more breathable, walkable, functional, usable. And that all started with reimagining. But don't be afraid, Jerry, to just move things around a little bit. See how you like it. Moving it around is all about experimentation. It doesn't mean that it has to permanently live there. It doesn't mean that you have to shackle yourself to it for the next 15 years. Even the next week. If you don't like it, you can move it back tomorrow. This is also, I have to say, It is an absolute joy working one-on-one with clients. It is an absolute joy because they come in with the excitement for a change, the desire for something new, and the willingness, which I think is 90% of the battle, the willingness to experiment. And another one of my clients does just this. Every time we are on a call together, she has her tennies on because she is not afraid to move a piece of furniture. If I say, I don't know if that's going to work yet, but I have an idea, would you be willing to try it? And she will put her little tennies on and she will move these pieces of furniture in order to see how she likes it. And sometimes we land it right there, and sometimes, okay, that wasn't quite it. But the willingness, friend, is going to get you very far in home decorating, especially when you want to refresh and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money. This is one of the top tips too for, I have my store, my home decorating store in my little small town. And this is one of the top tips. I know that I might have the same, I don't know, I was going to say 50 products, but I have a whole lot more than 50 products in my little space. I have the same products, but if they're not moving, meaning if they're not being sold, all I have to do is rearrange it. And then someone who's a local who comes in all the time on repeat every week, they see something different. It's all about perspective when you refresh with rearranging. Hey you, I see you over there hanging out on the Pinterest pinning fence, caught between the land of inspiration gathering and action. I see the hesitation, not knowing where to start, and definitely not wanting to make any more costly mistakes. I see the desire for wanting a home you feel proud of, one that looks cohesive and like you finally got your decorating act together. This message is for you, the action takers, or the wannabe action takers, who are ready to finally finish that room you've been holding out on. On April 29th to May 1st, I'm hosting my first ever Better Than Basics Bootcamp, where I'll not only be teaching you how to identify your style and learn the fundamentals of creating a cohesive home, but I'll be fact-checking all of your work. This workshop isn't just for learning. By the end of the 3 days, you'll walk away with a clear idea of what your design style is and isn't, what is making your home look or lack cohesiveness, and a clear plan for what to do about it. You'll use my redecorating roadmap and the mood board I teach you how to create to finally finish that room you've been wanting to. So, what do you say, friend? Are you ready to take action? Join me in the live Better Than Basics Bootcamp happening April 29th to May 1st at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Replays are available, but space is limited, so I can get my eyes on your work and my hands on your projects. Let's jump off that fence together. Are you ready? Save your seat at bit.ly/betterthanbasics. I'll see you there. All right, friend, number 3, remove and replace. So just in the same light as rearranging your furniture, what I want you to think about is removing items from your room, from your space, in order to replace it then with something else. So this is really where the heart of shopping your home comes in handy. If I know that I have we'll say a dresser that is a low boy, it is longer than it is high, and this serves its function perfectly well as a dresser. That's what we know it as. That's what we expect it to be used as when we go to the furniture store. But I know if I'm wanting to refresh my space and I'm not wanting to spend a whole lot of money, I know that I might be able to reimagine this and say that dresser can be used as an entryway table, as a credenza, as a sideboard in my dining room, as a sofa table, as you name it, it might have another purpose somewhere else in my home. Can it be used as another dresser in another bedroom? Absolutely. That's its intended purpose, right? But when we think outside of the box and we can kind of think about the way that a piece of furniture can function for you, if you think about how it might function for you in the dining room or in the library or in the office, or you name the room, if you kind of think about, can this function for me in a different way? What things do I need in that room? And you're able to apply a function for it, you might have just landed yourself a really fun, think outside of the box piece of furniture that your friends will not have because they're using it typically in the bedroom, we'll say. All right, so removing and replacing items, and this can be, of course, easier done with smaller items, but you can, just like that that dresser use some of the bigger items. And the fourth R is to rethink. And I've already given you an example of how to rethink the function or the purpose of an item that is traditionally used in one way, and thinking about the possibility of how it can work for you in a different room. Maybe you have a completely different idea. Maybe that sideboard, that dresser that you had, maybe that is now going to be your island in your kitchen. Maybe it's going to be, if it's shorter and smaller, maybe it's going to be the vanity in your bathroom. Maybe it's going to be a sideboard in your dining room, and you're going to clear out those drawers and allow that to be where you hold your silver or your nice china. You can see how rethinking something that is meant for one purpose can be used and reiterated in a lot of different ways. But I now want you to think about rethinking the beauty. I think a lot of times our thought space lens here, when we want to update a space, right? We go right for the aesthetics, and that's natural. But there are some ways that we can update a piece of furniture that might be, of course, the sanding down or staining or painting, or even just if it's a piece of wood and there's some water stains or some, not gouges are different, but like scratches, those can be remediated in ways that you can highlight then the natural wood without having to repaint it because it's been damaged too much. Changing out the knobs, painting the sides. I'm still picturing a dresser here, guys, but in my dresser idea, pull out the side of the dresser, and what do you see? You see plain wood sides on the dresser drawers. What if you painted that? What if you added wallpaper into the drawer linings? What if you added wallpaper in the back of a bookshelf or painted the back of the bookshelf? What if you took out a drawer and used that as a shelf instead? Rethinking and reimagining some different elements of that one piece can create an entirely new piece. Swapping out legs, removing legs, changing handles, adding pole wrap or caning, adding internal lighting. All of these are ideas of things that you can do to update and reimagine a piece and give it just a little bit more zhuzh. Maybe bring it into the current decade. I remember doing a piece years ago, and this was an iconic 1980s piece, and it had an apron front on the bottom. I believe it was a dresser, and it was a low boy, so it was really long and low. And the bottom was a pretty typical 1980s design in that it had the, if you can imagine, like the apron front at the feet, where it had kind of like a curvature, a piece that kind of looked like a very low M. I'm not describing this well at all, but it was indicative of the 1980s. And what we did was we just took that thing off and we gave it new legs, and those new legs were tapered and it made that piece feel very current. Now those new legs with the raw wood wouldn't necessarily go with the old wood of the 80s and the intricacies of that design. So we did have to paint this piece, swap out the hardware, and then we had a really magnificent piece of furniture that otherwise was going to probably the dump. I did get it from Goodwill, so it wasn't there yet. But some of those pieces, when you ignore them or displace them or discard them and say, this is no longer a story worthy of a home in 2025, that's really not true. Breathing a little bit new life into these tired pieces can really add such a fun character to your space, a little bit more nuanced than going out and buying a piece of furniture that is made with MDF. And I just spoiled my last R, which was repair. And in that case, that was a repair. A little bit. It was reimagining and repairing. But let me give you another example. A client hired me once to restore a hutch, and this was gorgeous. This was antique. And if you were to look at it, you might think, oh my gosh, this is, I don't know, you probably land in one camp or the other. Gorgeous or not my style. And it had already been painted because it had already been damaged. Now, my rule of thumb, just in case you're wondering about painting over antique furniture, my rule of thumb is if it looks like it has been in pristine condition and grandma has waxed it and kept it in good repair and it just looks pristine. It looks like you could literally eat your dinner off of that and not worry because it's so nice. Don't touch it. We're just going to keep polishing it and making sure it's taken well care of, right? Keep it away from water and stains and all the things. But every once in a while, those pieces get real tired real fast. Sometimes they just get a little bit more abused. There's gouges out of it. There are watermarks that are super deep. There's parts of the drawer that are missing. And you get the idea. It's just a little bit like it's 2 steps away from going into the landfill. Those are the pieces I love to restore if I can. Now, can I restore it down to the real wood? It depends. It depends on the extent of the damage. But in this case, the gal who hired me to redo her hutch, it had already received plenty of damage. In fact, one of the sides of her hutch it had some water damage. And you know when some water gets on wood, it can get a little warpy. Well, this was really thin wood. So it wasn't the base, it wasn't the structure of the piece, it was the top layer. And friend, that was easy enough to take off. We removed it and we repaired it with another piece of thin plywood, and we repaired it and good as new. Sanded it down, made it seal, and then of course we had to paint over it because it was a piece of wood that didn't match. But the point here is this: don't disregard it just because it's had a moment. Don't disregard it just because it's lived 50 years, 70 years. Don't just disregard it. Now, if you're living with a piece and this is a side note, a little bit of a tangent, but if you're living with a piece and you're like, I hate this more than I hate lima beans given to me. If you hate it more than you can stand it, why is it taking up residence in your home? Can you ask yourself that question? Why are you allowing it to stay there? It's time to say, someone else might enjoy this, and bless it and release it. And if you're thinking, yeah, but it's tied to family history, okay, fantastic. Would that person who it's tied to want you to hate that piece? Probably not. So see if another family member wants it. Or if that person wants you to have that piece and you hate it, and I'm talking a bore, you just cannot stand it. Can you do something in order to remediate it in a way that you enjoy it, that it brings your family joy? Because I guarantee you, if it's something that is inherited, which is usually the case, friend, it's not usually you bring something in your home that you hate. It's usually you receive it and you hate it. Usually those gift givers want to give it to you out of love, right? They want to give it to you out of, I think you might enjoy it. This was a family heirloom. This is something. Be real with yourself. And ask yourself, do I love it? Do I hate it? How would I feel about it if I got rid of it? Can I bless it even to another family member? Would someone else love it and take care of it? Don't hang on to it if you hate it. Because friend, your story is written all over your home, right? Your legacy is written all over your home. And this is the canvas for your storytelling. And if you hate something, chances are it's going to be reflected in other areas of your home. Okay, I'm off my soapbox, friend. The 5 R's, we are going to reimagine, rearrange, remove or replace, rethink, and repair. Jerry, I hope that inspires you to reimagine some pieces in your own home. And I am so delighted that you asked that question. If you have a question like Jerry, I want you to bring it to me. You can email me at hello@figandfarmathome.com. Bonus if you have a picture, because it gives me a lot more context for the answer. All right, until next time, I'll see you soon. Friend, thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you taking part of your busy day to tune in and listen. If you enjoyed the show, chances are someone else will too. And you know what? The best way for them to find it is by leaving a review. Doing that changes that pesky little algorithm that Apple Podcast has that allows my show to be seen by others. And if you can take 30 seconds to leave a review, it would make me beam ear to ear. I appreciate it. Until next time, I'll see you soon.